That's a great way to start off. Welcome to the Mr. Teacher, Mr. Preacher podcast. This is Kevin. I am the teacher. That is Jake. He is the preacher, and we are on a mission to learn what lasts in athletics and teach it back to you, the athlete, coach, and parent of the greater sports world. This is a great episode, as all episodes are, because Jake's back. Jake, in a nutshell, got to move and go on vacation and just do normal people stuff, but he did it all because he's crazy like that. So is his family in just a short amount of time. So we held down the fort, and it's good to have you back, Jake. How are we doing?
We're doing well. It's good to be back. It's a new place for me, same place for you, but it's good. We're happy to be here. We're happy we survived the last 3 weeks. We're still surviving right now. It's a little warm where I'm at right now, but all is good.
What was the temperature gauge in Arizona again?
120.
Good grief. I'm currently staring at 62. So I'm basically half of you at this point.
Sounds so lovely. Our low is 97, so we're just constantly hot right now.
Well, to be punny, let's stay hot on the trail of enthusiasm, which is where we're at. We are in the second building block of the pyramid of success of John Wooden. We covered industriousness. That was last month's episode. You can see those. And this is going to be our second deep read, and we'll get to that. But where can you get the book? Well, that is bookshop.org. We'll supply that link below, but bookshop.org is the independent store underdogs of the booking world, if that's a thing, book world. And that's one place you can go get your books. You can feel good about where your money goes because it supports those local and indie bookstores across the nation. It is a tad bit spendier at times, depending on the book, if you get hardcover or softcover. But it's one place we get our books. And if you want to follow along, you get an episode, you're like, oh, I got to read that book too. Go to bookshop.org. So we'll have that kit set up all for you, or the grouping. So we have all the industriousness books together, all of the enthusiasm books together. Go get that book. Bookshop.org. I don't really have a getting out of the ad or affiliate read. A number of times I say the brand or the affiliate, but it's kind of fun to oversay it 7 to 10 times. I'm just saying, this is great. We're going to be great readers of affiliates and sponsors eventually. So we are in enthusiasm, and I just want to define that again. Is enthusiasm, according to this pyramid, sometimes I mix it up, is it brushes off. So when you're enthusiastic, you have energy, brushes off upon those with whom you have in contact. You must truly enjoy what you are doing. So this is kind of the other side of the coin, and Wooden calls it the cornerstones. So industriousness, work hard, work smart, along with enthusiasm, because you really can't make it very long unless you got fuel in the tank. So last week, in last deep read, we covered Find Your Yellow Tux by Jesse Cole. And that was how did the Savannah Bananas basically become the Savannah Bananas? And that was a fun place to start. So these first two books are really good anecdotes. One nonfiction, that was Jesse Cole. And this one is more of the fiction. And they're a little softer academically. The two books after this, The Power of Fun and Super Better, are very academic. Kind of like when we broke up Work Hard and Work Smart and Industrious. We're doing the same thing here. Before we get into the Energy Bus by John Gordon, I want to play a game just because it's fun. So to focus you in, I want to talk about the Dickens process. So the Energy Bus is very similar to A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. All right. So we're going to be getting a character who's going to go through this redemptive arc. And I think for whatever reason, humans, we love this. We love the second chance. I think because we all fall on our face at some point. We love the grace. We love the turnaround. And I think we get amused by the ability to change things for the better almost instantly. And the book goes into quite a bit of that. But Jake, I want to play a game with you. This is called Athletically Scrooged, just because that phrase sounded amazingly fun. Athletically Scrooged. So Tony Robbins does do a version of a psychological version of the Dickens process where he goes past, present, future. Okay, so in A Christmas Carol, if you're not familiar, go watch The Muppet Christmas Carol if you need to. The only one you really need to watch. There's a debate topic. But he gets visited by three ghosts, the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. Now I want to do something similar, Jake, but for athletics. Okay. So I'm going to give you the Scrooge like remote or controller. Okay. So thinking of your athletic career, whether as an athlete or a coach, you have the choice to go back, and you can rewind, you can pause, you can spot the positive, you can spot the negative, but go back to the past. You can even do the far past or the near past, maybe even the end of your career. Is there anything you would, in terms of positive or negative energy, encapsulate? So, it's like, ooh, I would change that. Or, ooh, I would keep that exactly the same. Because the point of the Scrooge arc, or being athletically Scrooge, was Scrooge didn't have a good past. And then he gets to see what his life looks like from an objective point of view. So we get to see him. He gets to watch himself. That would be very eerie, by the way. And then he gets to go into the future of like, what are the results of A plus B equals C? So kind of take me through any which direction you want. I know I gave you kind of an open-ended feel, but let's get a little athletically Scrooged and go back and say, okay, what did I like? What did I not like? What were the results of that? And then, kind of where you're at now. That'll be a good start.
Yeah. I think what I've learned about myself, if I could go back, is I would be less of a coach pleaser, because I think that ruined the creativity and enjoyment that I had playing the game as I grew older. Because I had an innate personality that wanted to never screw up. I was a perfectionist that never wanted to screw up. Mixing that with coaches who were less than fans of mistakes that were made. Kind of, I don't want to say molded, because I don't think it's a strong enough word, forced me into a hole that I don't think was the best path forward for an athlete. So if I could go back, I would change that perception that I had of the whole situation, the whole athletic situation.
How would that have changed? Like, so like if you assume that occurred, what would that have done to you as a, let's just say, varsity soccer player and or college soccer player? Like, how would you have played different? What would your personality have been like? Like, what would have been enhanced? Because it's a little bit performance related, but it sounds very similar to being personality related.
Right. This is speculation, right? And
Yeah.
That's what
That's
makes
the point of
bit,
this.
right, which makes it a little bit tougher. But I would say it would have increased my ceiling as an athlete extensively. Not saying that is a promise of what I would have done. It would have increased my limit exponentially. It would have changed. It would have changed how I led within certain groups. Right. And that's something that thankfully I've learned in my professional life now, is that essentially, like, now I'm a boss who's willing to push the limits a little bit, who's willing to push back on certain things, to a leader that's a little bit more willing to take risks and chances. I think 10 years ago, me would have been the person that just fell in line, wanted to do everything according to the book, would have read his boss really well and been like, okay, I know exactly how to please that person, to marching orders, etc. And so I think that's how I've changed. I would have been a very creative player. I was a very creative player. That just got killed because with creativity come mistakes, comes learning, comes falling on your face, and there was no tolerating that. From a coach's perspective, and then mix that with my personality, I wasn't going to put up a fight and try things that maybe I shouldn't have been trying.
Well, and in the creative realm, if you get beat up for taking a risk, usually you praise the risk, like, because the results are Sometimes there, sometimes not. Like, oh, not like I saw what you did there. Way to go for it. But if you constantly go to the well, which you think is cool, right? Because you're getting the neurochemistry like, ooh, I see a pattern. I'm going to take the risk. Here's your creative flow trigger. But if you get crushed for that, now I know you. Okay. I've seen you play in multiple contexts. There is a difference. Like Wooden would like take somebody out for being too showy. You were not a showy player. You were risky for a purpose. And it's kind of like the people who dribble between their legs just to show off, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go behind my back like 5 times, like, the street ball. The NBA, what was the street ball game? Or was the show? I don't know. It doesn't matter. But like that. And one. There we go. Yeah. Like that. So there's that versus like the NBA, like where you're doing that move to accomplish or get through to score a basket. So you weren't the and one player. I think that's what we saw at that time because and one was really cool. It still is really cool. Coaches saw that, and then they end up with all these robotic players who play really stiff. And then when you get into pressure situations, you don't get the creativity you need to be able to pull off some, problems that need some wicked, creative solutions. So interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and this goes back. This for me. This clicked actually when I was watching one of our basketball games when we played together.
Oh, for gracious sakes.
Your dad, and I'd be interesting to hear the side of your dad that you got as a coach.
Oh yeah,
but really was the only coach that coached me to do something, to create something, and then lived with the consequences of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think number one, he was the only one that would, hey, why aren't you trying to do something? Like, forget what you standing on the perimeter, passing a ball is useless to me. Stop doing that. Do something different, right?
More or less in those words.
Every other coach that I had no problem with me doing that.
Mm-hmm.
This is very interesting to me. And then if I did do something and turn the ball over, got stripped, I never got yelled at. I would maybe get, hey, did you see this? Or hey, did you do that? Or something like along those lines. But he was the only one. And I didn't realize that until I was watching a game back on a camcorder that we had at Blake. So
interesting.
You got a little different side of him, I will admit that.
I will admit that. Now, for those that don't know, everybody has their own picture of like if you have a dad or a parent as a coach, a little different. But to paint a picture a little bit, my dad's not very big. He's an Irishman. He was very loud. He was Bobby Knight. Although a little bit more positive. Bobby Knight, yeah. Bobby Knight was the extreme, but I mean, he leans on that end. He's not sitting stoically in the corner, like golf clapping. This is not happening. Like he was, I don't know how he did with his voice now that I'm an adult, but his ability to correct mistakes, like in terms of like, not like when people mess up, like he let physical mistakes go, but he was a hound, unbelievable, like instantaneous, like for mental mistakes. Like if he wanted you to do something, like drive the basket, and you didn't do it, everybody in the gym knew. And you. And then guess what happened? That embarrassment at that middle school age was so great. You'd rather go drive, even if it meant you were going to go into the cavalry and die, right? You could drive into 3 people, but you would rather do that than get called out against the entire gym. But yeah, we could go into coaching. Because I don't have that for this athletically Scrooged. I have a little bit different, but I have a similar pattern to you. Okay. So if I would go back, one of the things that I was blessed with is I loved to practice. I never got around people who loved to practice like I did. So I was just reminiscing this. Somebody said, hey, do you do coaching or, pitching or hitting, for instance, like at a facility? Like, would you train people? And I said, that was one of my dreams at one point. But I realized that I never went to like specially get trained because we didn't have a ton of money. Like it already costs a lot to play a sport as it is. But I look at like, and I know he's a little controversial figure, but like a Trevor Bauer. Okay. He taught himself how to pitch. He is not super athletically gifted. Neither am I. but he went to like Ron Wolforth's baseball ranch, Texas baseball ranch, okay, just north of Houston. If I would have been surrounded by like Ron Wolforth, Brent Porcio, Eric Cressy, Kyle Body out in Driveline, and literally anybody who was a who's who at that time or anything like that, I would have been hooked. Like, cause I was willing, like almost blindly. You say I have to hit 1,000 balls off tee, cool, let's do it, 1,000 balls. If I would have had a little more around like the training, because that was the other regret and regret is good because it teaches us, that's Daniel Pink's work, is the power of regret. It teaches us like what we should do better in the future. So regret's not all bad. Okay. But if I would have been in that environment, I'm convinced I would have excelled. Now I wouldn't have nearly been the best, but I would have been much better. And so I was kind of in that, I was obsessed about at least baseball. But I found that I love that also in football, and I loved it in basketball, like the weight room culture. If you'd have thrown me in a weight room, I was willing to work and die to get there. And so I wonder about that going back, is like if I would have had the chance to ask for a traveling to a baseball camp versus a Christmas present. Like I didn't have that level, and I probably should have. That would be what I would do. And what would that have done? I'm sure I would have been better, at some point. But the people you meet and the training, I think it would just multiply it, and it would have been really cool. So that'd be what I would do. Okay, well, let's shift to the first draft reading. And this will go pretty quick. So if you have not heard of it, it is The Energy Bus by John Gordon, with the foreword by Ken Blanchard, who's also a wonderful author. It is 10 rules to fuel your life, work, and team with positive energy. Now, again, this is not soft because there's plenty of real research in here, but it's a fictional account, just like Scrooge, okay? But instead of Scrooge, where he has ghosts, what we get is this character of George, who's going to go through this Scroogian, God, I just love making up words today, athletically Scroogian process. Instead of ghosts and tenses like past, present, future, we get a character in the present who gets to go on a bus with a bus driver named Joy, of all things. That's very punny. I think it's great. Who gets these rules to kind of transform his life. Okay. So we get this character who is down and out. His job stinks, right? He's kind of lost the spark. His marriage is falling apart because he's not the same guy anymore. So you can kind of picture kind of a middle life crisis, not quite midlife, but a little maybe before that. He's got kids, he's got a mortgage, he works at a light bulb company, and so on and so forth. Basically, he is what's called a dimmer, and that's on page 6 if you get the hardcover like I get. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, and I'm going to read it, is we see this everywhere. I think I've noticed this. You can see the look in people's eyes when people have energy and when they're not. And so they call them dimmers. I'm going to read this. They walked around like zombies just trying to get through the day. No purpose, no spirit, no energy, as if it had been sucked out of them by the daily grind of life. She could tell the men, this is Joy, the bus driver of the energy bus, who had given up on their dreams. That's harrowing. She knew the women who were working by day and taking care of a family by night, and she heard the complaints all the time. Too many people, including George, our main protagonist, were overstressed, overtired, and overworked. Okay? So the point of this is everyone does have problems, right? We all got our own stuff. We got our weights, and sometimes those weights really do bring you down to a knee or maybe two, or maybe you fell completely over. That is normal. So I don't want to, in this episode, get too corny or too over the top. I acknowledge the weight of negativity, and it does stick to you sometimes. Things are hard. With that said, I'll get into the 10 rules in a second. Ken Blanchard, in the foreword for this book, said, basically, it comes down to this. I mean, we're going to talk about these strategies, but every morning we get the chance to wake up and be a positive or a negative thinker. We get the choice to be a positive or negative athlete, coach, parent. And this book is about how to do that. Very practical seem corny. We recorded an episode on that. Why, eat more corn. Why, being corny is the secret to enthusiasm, essentially. And I'd rather be corny than happy than miserable and a dimmer, is what it comes down to. If this is what it takes, it's not being unauthentic, it's not being fake. But if this is the kind of stuff that fuels us up, we need to take care of it. So, what are the rules? Let's read the rules. They're not very long. There's 10. We're not covering every rule in this episode because, frankly, Jake and I don't have time. And you can read them when you go get the book from bookshop.org or Thrift Books. You're welcome. So, 10 rules for the ride of your life. So, how do we create more enthusiasm? Before we get into the second draft reading, I give Jake a chance to jump in. Number 1, you are the driver of your bus. Number 2, desire, vision, and focus move your bus in the right direction. Number 3, fuel your ride with positive energy. Number 4, invite people on your bus and share your vision with the road ahead. Number 5, don't waste your energy on those who don't get on your bus. Number 6, post a sign that says no energy vampires allowed on your bus. Number 7, enthusiasm. Hey, there's that word. We're studying that. Attracts more passengers and energizes them during the ride. Number 8, love your passengers. Number 9, drive with purpose or meaning. Number 10, have fun and enjoy the ride. So, Jake, any thoughts on the first draft reading or general scope? Or are you ready to just jump in?
This seems like a really good analogy. I love those 10 rules. I think there's a lot of good stuff that we could unpack through those. But let's go. Second draft. Let's go.
Second draft. Okay, so the first draft is like, what's the book about? We're getting better as we get through these episodes to condense that, because if you read the book without us, you can get your own stuff. Like, that's kind of, here's the comprehension. You could Spark Notes that, or check out Blinkist or some other summary. The second draft, we're going to take this book and apply it to sports. Like, what can we learn from this? How can we apply it? That's kind of the takeaway here and the point of the show. So, what are the conditions? What do we need? What can we learn about enthusiasm from the energy bus? That's the guidance. So we'll start first with rule number 1. So you are the driver of your own bus. Okay? And this bleeds, or like Wooden says, is it brushes off on other people. And this fuels your bus. And you need vision. So, Jake, maybe you can say the exact verse, but without a vision, people perish. Not only collectively, but individually. And I think this is one of the best places to start, because that's what makes you a dimmer. You just kind of aimlessly wander. Whereas if you imagine somebody who's got somewhere they're going, in this case, getting chickens in Arizona, you head straight there, right? I mean, if you want chickens in Arizona, well, you got to go towards Arizona. You can't go to New Hampshire, for instance. This isn't heads Carolina, tails California, all right? Even that has vision. So the breakdown of this, and I do want to talk to you about this, and we'll transfer it to sports, is what is your vision, not you specifically, but you as a listener, your vision for your athletic life as a coach, a parent? What does that look like? What is your vision for that? Where do you want to go? Where's your bus going? And that's really one of the crises here is you don't know where you want to go. So I'm going to pass that to you, Jake. What do you think of having a vision? I don't know if I've ever even been talked about this as an athlete, like a vision for your career or a vision for your coaching. Like, what do you want it to look like? Now, we did talk about this a little bit in Find Your Yellow Tux in the first episode, but what do you think about this vision for sports?
I certainly never really had one. You have this big grandiose vision of maybe playing college, maybe being a professional athlete in whatever sport you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great vision to have. I mean, certainly it seems like every kid has probably imagined themselves playing a professional sport in the biggest moment and executing whatever they want to execute. I would say that's part of a vision. I would say that's too vague, though. I would challenge especially younger kids to really have a vision for that specific season of the type of player they want to be, the type of teammate they want to be, perhaps what they want to do by the end of the season. that might trigger them to do something a little bit more immediate and relevant to where they're at, right? Um, Perhaps it's a skill they want to learn or something they want to be able to do, something they want to accomplish as a team, as an individual that season, or even within 2 years, maybe. I think too oftentimes we make that vision too big. And I know there'll be people like, you can't make the vision too big. I'm not saying to take that away, but if that's the only thing you have, it can be rather daunting, right? For the average athlete, for the average coach. Are there some people that get this vision in their head that they're going to be a pro athlete and then just boom, off they go? I think there are personality types that can do that. I don't think they're that common, right? I think most of us are more nearsighted, more nearsighted driven. And so keeping that vision local, more relevant for yourself, for the kids that you coach, is important. The other thing that came up, you talk about driving your own bus, is that you drive your own bus, but you're not the one who installs the traffic lights, and you're not the one who makes the road, right? And my point in bringing that up is just because you're driving your own bus doesn't mean you get to control everything. And that can be a big deterrent for people. They can get on the bus, they're driving their bus. Oh, I wasn't ready for that hairpin. I don't want to do that hairpin turn. I don't want to be stuck in traffic here for this little bit. And that can cause a lot of people to give up control of their bus or to get off the bus entirely. So that's one part that I would add to driving your own bus. Obviously, you got to drive your own bus, but understand that that doesn't make you in control of everything. It's calling you to control what you can.
Yep. That's really good. That's really because I made the note of this is locus of control. You need a vision within your control. And sometimes the vision is given to you, right? You get a team, you get a coach, you're like, hey, we're going that way. We're going to win the conference champion. Like you get a vision that is more near term. In the last episode, when we talked about Find Your Yellow Tux, Gary Vee brought up the clouds in the dirt. Like you need your head in the clouds sometimes, right? That big, I'm going to go pro or I'm going to go play college. But then you also need the industriousness to work on the day to day. And then you're saying having kind of that mid ground, whatever that would be in that analogy. But we talked about that, like the benefits in that Eat More Corn mini lesson of the 6, I forget the exact phrasing, but like the 6 benefits of committed goal pursuit. When you step on the conveyor belt, like I got a goal, now we're going somewhere. And I think that was really the point of this and there's not a lot of scaffolds in this book, and that wasn't the point of the book. So like, I'm not going to break down how to create a vision with you. That's a whole nother episode and book. Okay. The point is to have one. Where are you going? And they talk in this book about, your work, your health, your family, your relationships. Like that's all fine. But for our context, Jake's right. Where are we going? Okay. Where are we going today? Where are we going at the end of the year? Where are we going the next 4 years? Thereabouts.
I love that today, but that's something that is a habit that I've gotten into as a coach is every time I go to a training session, before I start, actually, right? Obviously, I connect with talking to players, but then when we get down to we're ready to start, it's usually a 30-second, 1 minute, hey, this is what we're doing today, to really paint them a picture of this is what we're working on. This is the purpose of today's session. And this is where I'm seeing us at the end of it. This is what we're going to, or maybe not at the end of the session, but at the end of the week, because that's what we're working on, whatever. But even just that little moment, it's a 30-second, 1 minute thing, but you're painting that vision, you're painting that purpose into a practice that gives kids context, gives an athlete context as to what they're working on and why they're working on it. I think it's really important.
I agree. And that's why clear goals is a flow trigger. What am I doing right now? Like, where am I putting my attention? And it is night and day when you have that and when you don't. And I think that's the point of this. So our character, George, and again, I'm not getting into George's story. You can read about George if you get the book, okay? It's a great story. I love it. It's cool. That's why the book did so well. But the next thing is we're gonna save some of the positive energy strategies because, right, we're gonna get more enthusiasm in our lives, but I want to go through some of these other ones. Is rule number 4. I think this is huge, especially for our audience, is invite people on your bus and share your vision for the road ahead. So having a vision, being open about that. Like, how often are we having conversations? Are we good? There we go. As athletes to our parents, to our coach of here's where I am, here's where I want to be, and being transparent with that. Because my job as a parent or a coach is to help you get there. At least, hey, I want to be a catcher. Okay, well, you want to be a catcher. Well, how can I help you with that? Okay, we need to work on catching. We need to work on our pop time, whatever. And the reason why I say this, and I feel like a broken record, I've heard the phrase, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. Who are you surrounding yourself with? And this comes up, I'm going to bring up the energy vampires a little bit, but you need to surround yourself with people who have vision, who are on your bus, who are on your team. Doesn't always have to be friends, but who's helping you get there? And I'll save that for now, but I want athletes to surround themselves with the people who are going to help their vision. Who are your allies? And we're going to get to super better later. And that's what Jane calls them, as allies. Who are your allies that are going to support you along the way? And spend more time with them. I don't think I did that because you kind of get your team, right, as either coach or an athlete, and you kind of just hang out with it. Same thing with parents. Like, I mean, surrounding yourself with those that are positive, have the right lens of the game in mind. It's so easy to fall into the complaint traps or the politics that are inevitable in youth sports, which end up being, in the end, foolish. I don't have a better word for it right now. But what do you think about rule number 4? Inviting people on your bus.
Yeah, it's not really something I've ever thought about in terms of athletics. The metaphor that comes to my mind, or how it's been put to me, is basically have your own board, right? Have your own board of directors.
Yeah.
You're the CEO of your life. You need a board of directors to go to. It's like, hey, I got a big decision. I need some guidance here. That's who you're going to. For an athlete, let's see if we can bring this down to a youth athlete, right? What does that mean for a youth athlete? I would suggest staying away of not necessarily having your coach be. You want him to know the vision, but I wouldn't put him on your board of directors, okay? Because one person can't be on 15 different boards. It's not healthy, okay? And I think that's the thing that gets frustrating for parents and athletes, is something that they don't realize. And honestly, it wasn't something that connected with me until I got to college, and a coach deliberately told me this. Look, I'm coaching 22 different kids here. Yeah, I can't know these things. Like, it's not possible unless you tell me. It's not humanly possible. And I think there's an assumption of, well, you're a coach, you should be in tune with your players. Da 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 da. It's like, no, I'm not doing this for a living, right? It's not like I'm being paid millions of dollars here to be invested in you, and you invested in the team. It's a whole different conversation, right? But youth level, I can't do that. I got my own kids. I got my own job. There's no way. So not necessarily having that coach, making sure the coach is aware of the vision, and we hope that coach can interject and help however he can in that vision. But trying to find people outside of your team, right? So friends, mentors outside of the team, outside of sport even, that if you're going to them with issues, with frustrations, with questions, that they're giving you a perspective outside of the echo chamber, outside of the political sphere that you are in, right? Yeah. Because it's inevitable. It can be your best friend, but if they're within that political sphere, and it's sad that I have to say this about youth sports, but their answers influenced by that political sphere, right? And what I mean by that is right and wrong gets contorted in politics all the time. Okay, it is present in youth sports, so you're getting guidance that is being contorted by a compass that's off, and that's just not healthy for anyone. You're going to get bad advice. You're going to go in wrong decisions, wrong directions. So trying to find those people to get on your bus that aren't intimately involved in whatever sport you're in, right? I go to your local church, right? Other youth group friends, school friends that maybe play different sports. I think that was, for me, was healthy. I had a lot of friends. I had none of my best friends play soccer.
That was probably a good thing.
Very few of them, and I think that's that is a very good thing, right? We had
Yep.
those kind of cross sports connections. We're all athletes, but in very different ways. And my
Mhm.
athletic atmosphere was very different from my friends, which I think was ultimately a very good thing, insane thing. So when you're talking about getting people on your bus, I would recommend finding people outside of that direct sphere that you're in to get on your bus, to support you, to be positive for you, to give you guidance. Because if you're finding those people within the same sphere, it's really easy to get sucked in and get sucked down roads, for taking the bus analogy, in wrong directions and in bad environments.
I'm not holding my fingers up to pause you. I'm holding my fingers up so I remember the 3 things I need to add to that. So, to piggyback on Jake, I agree with this. This is a whole exercise. So not only finding your vision, that's a great thing. Go down that rabbit trail. This one of people. So number one, I agree with Jake. Lateralize. Get out of your sport. You wouldn't imagine how great soccer player, great basketball player. They got a lot in common. Okay, especially if you're in a bigger school. Those people need to know each other. Okay. It's almost like captains of multiple sports who just have this little group. That's great. Now, a lot of people play multi sports, and you are constrained by your town. I understand that. But I like the word lateralize. Look outside of your even sport, even not even in sports. It could be something else, because peak performance has a lot in common with even playing a guitar, for instance. Okay. So that gives you a lot of perspective. The other one is look vertical. I'm a huge fan of mentorship in looking much past you. So if you're in middle school, go to the high school. If you're in high school, go to college. If you're in college, go pro, or maybe somebody who's not playing anymore. So go vertical. And what in the world was the third one? Oh, Tony Dungy. He's a wonderful former coach of the Indianapolis Colts. And he talked about being the mentor leader. You don't always have to know this person. But if you ingest their material or you follow them on social media, they can be an informal mentor to you. Learn about their story, read their autobiography or biography, or whatever articles you can get a hand on, and they could be on your bus. So let me see if I can condense that. Lateralize. We're just talking about matching your hand movements when you're talking.
Lateralize.
Verticalize. Go vertical or go out. Completely. You don't know the person. So I like that.
Verticalize. I like that. I think there's a lot of cool ideas that could happen there. If you're a director of a program, trying to connect maybe high school, college age kids in your community, in your area, with some of the youth players that you have going through your program, I think could be a really cool asset and thing that you could utilize.
Yeah, I can say that I would have loved that, because you really look up to those kids. They're almost more powerful than the coach sometimes, or a lot of times. So, all right, keeping the train moving. This one's a little bit out there. Now, I'll say what it is, and then we'll circle around, because we got 2 more, and then we're gonna hop into the metaphor and the most valuable idea from this book, and then we'll end with all the really practical strategies. So hang in there. This is one where I would love to get Wooden's actual response. Okay, so the reason why I say is the thing here for more energy or more enthusiasm is recognized repeatedly. And I know it's a soft spot for you. So in the story, George is a manager. Okay, light bulb company. He's got a team. They're doing a new product launch, and he's trying to invite people on his bus. And he's got an employee underneath him named Jose, who basically says, screw you. Like, I've been doing everything you asked of me, and you've never said good job. You've never encouraged me. Why should I get on your bus? And I want to say that one of the top reasons is like top 5. I think it's even top 1 or 2. I can't remember the book. Forgive me. I need another cup of coffee. One of the top reasons people quit job is lack of recognition. And we're not talking about incentives. We're not talking about handouts. Just the smallest things. Jake, you took a risk there. Good work. Like stating the stinking obvious, like out loud. Like, I'm not a big manifest person. You can throw rocks if you want, but like getting thanks. The screen cracks. I wish we were better at video, because the screen could crack. I'm not doing that, people. Like, we're not cracking the screen on YouTube. Here, what is it in Happy Gilmore? Here comes the putter toss. Here comes the screen crack. Crunch. We could just do see. We've been doing this podcast all wrong. I don't remember what we did before, but we just need to do ASMR screen cracks like for hours on end. See, people would love it. We've been trying to monetize actually doing work. But he George levels. He has to own this. This is why Scrooge and George have so much in common. He literally gets to see this, and it hurts, right? Yeah, I haven't encouraged you. The reason why I want to ask Wooden this is because when we read the talent code, they said a majority of his communication was information, right? And then just a small amount was praise, and a small amount was like critique or like negative stuff. Like, hey, don't do that. So I would love to ask Wooden about. Maybe he did this outside of like the drill, like when he's teaching, like it's just information, like pound him in. I agree with that. Yet at the same time, like, do you come back around and recognize? So what I want to pass to you is this concept of recognize repeatedly. And not only as a coach, like, because I think we put all that on coach, but parents or athletes, like noticing in each other, like that was awesome. And there's ways to do this. It doesn't have to be just verbal, but one of the strategies is like the constant building up, even the littlest things, and like noticing that and getting out of your own ego and your own self to say, that was awesome. Like, and everybody doing that. I think this is one of the reasons why you see a dim or a dimmer culture, is that you just don't recognize or honor the good stuff that's happening, especially effort, like in the Angela Duckworth or Carol Dweck world. Like, you aren't honoring the grit and the effort. And that's one of the reasons people quit. They lose energy. It's because there's no fuel coming in from one source, much less an entire culture of sources. So what do you think about that? Like, especially in this athletic context as of recognition systems or recognition in general?
I'm going to take it to the professional world first because I have seen in my own personal life, I've seen such a stark difference in that particular thing and its impact on culture within a company. Okay. So previous employer, that didn't exist, right? The amount of people I would have come up and express to me, I have no idea how I'm doing. Like, I could tell you, but no one's told me. No one above me has said, oh, hey, you're doing a great job, or there's been no feedback at all, or you're doing terrible, like nothing. And you're just stuck in this weird place of, man, I think I'm really doing good, but no one said anything to me. Versus the place that I'm at now, where the amount of people that will go out of their way just to say, hey, I appreciate you, or hey, you're doing such an awesome job, is so night and day difference. And the energy you get from being in that environment versus the energy you lose from not being in that environment, being in the opposite, or even just a neutral environment, has been really eye-opening to me. Okay, so it makes a huge difference. My always biggest concern with it, and I think I tend to lean on the more positive and more complimenting side. I mean, I think we talked about this when we went through talent code, but when we broke down Wooden's percentages, we both, I think, said, yeah, I definitely lean on the praise. My percentage of praise would definitely be higher.
Agreed. Yep.
And so one of my biggest fears is that it becomes numb. My appreciation, my complimenting becomes numb because it becomes an ordinary thing. I don't want you to feel like I'm just saying a slogan when I say, hey, I appreciate you. No, I truly still appreciate you. I appreciated you yesterday. I'm still appreciating you today. So part of it is I just need to hit a thesaurus and find words for appreciation. But
well, and to pause just for a second on that, to agree with you, one of the mortars on the pyramid is sincerity. And this is a whole nother strategy. We're going to have to do a mini lesson in another part, but it says in the parentheses, sincerity keeps friends. And, when we were trained through gratitude and other things, there are strategies for this. The situation, behavior, impact, it's super short. You can learn how to do it. SBI, Google it. It's great. There's also something called the super powerful thank you, which is a little bit longer, where it's like, okay, here's what somebody did. Here's the effort or the talent they brought to that, and here's how it impacted me. So it's a little longer format. But I agree with you, like the sincerity of like like people, like let me backtrack. All compliments are well received, even cheesy ones. Jake, you look wonderful today. He's like, you see, you still give me like a little like cheesy smile. Like your beard line is just spotless. But the actual like where you did like take the time to sit with that person for a second and like see what they did takes a mindfulness and emotional intelligence. And I think that is something that can be trained and taught, and it's worth working on because that fuels that environment. Because what ends up happening is, what do other people do? They copy you, they emulate you. Like, oh, that's how you do that. That felt really good to me. I'm going to reciprocate or give that back because that's natural human tendency. It's like, oh, you did that. And I'm getting, or over time with repetition. And I don't think this has to be like an onslaught machine gun of recognition, but it can't be never either. So at different intervals, I think this would be the case. So I sorry for cutting you off, but I did want to add that it is here. And I think it is valuable to learn some strategies on that.
Yep. Definitely.
Cool.
No, that was my main point. You didn't really cut me off. You let me get my main point in. I love the sincerity added to it. If you're gonna ask me what the most important thing is in a human being, I'd tell you authenticity. If you're not authentic, I will run the other way so fast. It's like a deal breaker for me. I don't, and it truly, if you're just generally a grumpy kind of jerk of a person, but that's genuinely who you are, I will get along with you. I don't have any problem with you. Just be you. I love you for you. I love the uniqueness of you. Just be you. If you're not you, I have a tendency to pick it up pretty quick, and that will be it's like the first thing I look for. And if it's not there, I'm gone. Just peace out.
There you go. And you can see that. And I think that's what happens with a personal vision, and then also having the people around you is you start to get like an aura. We're going to come to this because there's a research stat I got to share with you, but I'm waiting for it about the heart, but we're going to save that. So the last thing I want to cover for the second draft is the secret, two more things. So I want to go back because I got to ask you about this because this one's really tough because I think you could get a little bit blind in this. It was the ultimate rule for positive energy. There's a cliffhanger throwing it out for you. Okay, the ultimate rule for positive energy, and it was embedded kind of in the section of getting people on your bus. So when you create a vision, I know that's hard, and you're going to put something out there. Not everybody's going to join you, like Jose, right? And not everybody's going to recognize that or even affirm that. And more often than not, if you got a good vision, people are going to think you're nuts. Okay. So the reason why I say that is to give a little bit of a warning because everybody can get all excited. Like, I'm creating a vision and then I'm going to tell everybody and everybody's going to be happy and we're going, right? Like, hit the gas. So the ultimate rule for positive energy is two things here. Your positive energy and vision. And we're going to get to those positive energy strategies. Your positive energy and vision must be greater than anyone and everyone's negativity. I'm going to repeat it. Your positive energy and vision must be greater than everyone and everyone's negativity. Must overwhelm it. Your certainty, I'm quoting the book, must be greater than anyone else's doubt. So there must be this confidence, assurance that is stronger than this stuff. Usually the people that are spouting this stuff, whatever the small, aren't really people who are on your bus anyways, but we tend to give them a lot more power because words have power, right? I mean, especially if it hits you in the heart. I mean, they get you really good. But this has to be bigger. So that was the ultimate rule. And now we're going to get to, at the end here, fueling up. Like, how can you create a snowball or an avalanche of energy that is literally bigger than that? But this is hard to do. I want to acknowledge that. This is not easy. If you're a new coach taking over a program and it's not a good program, if you're an athlete and nobody around you likes your sport as much as you do, or maybe you just don't come from an athletic family, or you don't have those 5 people to surround yourself with. Like, you, everywhere you look, you're like, I don't know where they are. It's just me. I'm on an island. This is hard. I'll just admit that. Like, having this, and there are going to be times where it's not bigger. You're going to be tired. You're going to lose a game. You're going to take a creative risk, and a coach is going to call you out on it. And you're like, I hate life, or I hate this. And this is the time where we need to go back to the vision and go back to these strategies of enthusiasm and fuel ourselves up so that we can overcome that. Okay. So I will admit that I have not always had this, because it is easy to get down on yourself, especially when you aren't seeing results. Like your team is losing, you're in a slump, same team as last year. It's easy to, it's human nature to be more negative than positive.
So yeah, it is. We definitely hear the negative things louder than we hear the positive things. It's like you need 99 positive things for every one negative thing. The words that you were talking that came into my mind were first conviction, then belief, or no, sorry, not then buy-in, then belief, and then faith. Okay. Everybody, every human on planet Earth is going through a battle of believing. There are two sides to that coin. Well, whatever the analogy is, right? There is belief and there is doubt. There's faith and there is doubt. I don't, two sides of the same coin versus two sides of a coin. Like, well, they're different. The two sides are different. So wouldn't they be? Anyways, okay. Sorry, don't need to go into the analogy.
Very good.
But those are the four words that came into mind as you're talking about it, right? Even a 10-year-old basketball player is going through a battle of belief versus doubt. Now, the younger they are, right? There's a reason that Jesus says in the Bible, have faith like little children. Okay. You had a faith like a child, right? There's less, I think there's less experience, there's less life for them to have gone through to knock them down, right? There's less of those negative experiences for doubt to be creeping into their head. As we get older, it's more common for doubt to creep into our head. But essentially, as a coach, when you're looking at your players, you're just trying to get them to believe in themselves more than they doubt themselves. And you're trying to recognize that pattern.
Skill building, it's confidence building. You're right.
This kid seems to be a little doubting what he can do, right? So in that case, for me, I go back to what I know he can do well, and I coach him on that. Hey, we know you can do this. Let's do this. And then, oh, hey, yeah, you're right. He does that really well. So he starts doing it. Now believing is growing and doubt is dropping. If I have a bunch of kids who believe in themselves and then believe in them as a group and doubt has dropped, I'm going to have a successful team. I don't care what sport we're playing. Okay. I mean, assuming they're playing within their relative skill level, but Ted Lasso, right? There's a reason he puts believe as the sign above his office. That is ultimately what we are all dealing with. And when you're talking about success, when you're talking about failure, the more belief and less doubt you have, the more successful that you are going to be. And that's what we're all trying to battle. If you're a coach, man, I've been there. Been there. Just sitting there in all this doubt, like maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I'm going on way the wrong trail with this group. Maybe I'm not. Like, for me, one of the best years of my coaching, seasons of my coaching life, I was coaching a high school. We were thinking we were going to be pretty good that year, better than we had been. And it just didn't get started off right. And the lowest point was we had a game where I think we outshot the other team 30 to maybe 2 and lost the game 1-0.
Oh, wow.
And I remember after the game, I just sat in my chair. I think I sat there for an hour and a half, just trying to figure out what on earth is going on. And I even got a parent who emailed me after the game. It was like, hey, just don't take it so personal. Don't take it so. And my reaction is this, like, no, it is personal. No. This is me doing what I do. I'm going to take this personal. And then we got to win after that. And we got to win after that. And after that, I think we rattle off 10 straight wins, some super dramatic, heroic wins at that. We went farther than we had ever gone before. And like the whole vibe just changed. But there was that moment where I was so doubtful of what I was doing, and I had to make a conscious decision. Nope, I still know what I'm doing. I still believe in what I'm doing with this group. This is still the right path forward. And I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to keep going. And eventually it clicked. They bought in. Well, the kids were bought in. They were, and that's kind of what I decided. Like, no, they believe in this. They still believe in this. We're still going forward with this. This is how we're going to go about our business. It ended up working out.
Yeah, that's a really good example, because sometimes when you start this process off, you're doing like that 1,000 beads challenge, right? Where like you're doing 1,000 mistakes. So that was an effortless, where you learn a language, and the metaphor was essentially like, get a bag of 1,000 beads, and as soon as you take out, or you've done 1,000 mistakes, then you're on level 1 mastery. And I love that, like how many like mistakes it takes to get there. But sometimes you're putting into the process, you're putting into the effort, and it's not showing yet. And I think that's kind of the point of the myelination, or putting down roots, is sometimes like bamboo and other plants in that world, which don't know anything about, but it takes a while for some things to be watered. And as a coach, you can get impatient in the first third of the season that, oh, I can't see it yet, and the kids can't see it. Like, you're doing everything right, but it's not transforming into the outcome. Because we get very, very impatient with the outcomes, right? We want the outcomes, even because sometimes these processes take time to turn over.
Well, and I'm just going to call out. I'm just going to call them out. It's not just the parent. It's not just the coach and the players. It's the parents that are going to get the most impatient. That are going to impact and make you feel that doubt a lot quicker and sooner than maybe even you would normally just by yourself.
Well, and we could go into expectations, because I know you and I have talked a lot about where you at in the winning cycle, like, or the programmatic cycle. Like in your case, in that one, you had a team that had the talent. You expected to be good, so the expectations were already high. So when you're not at that, there's this gap, and everybody feels the gap. Whereas if you're on a younger team, nobody expects anything from you. Well, okay, now that dynamic has maybe shifted. You're playing really well, and nobody expects anything from you. It's a good place to be. I like that. So I feel that. But I'm going to go back to your belief comment. We just wrapped up with my daughter, the softball season. And for our little league, we went undefeated, whatever. I didn't even know. I'm like, oh, we won them all. That's cool. I think what I noticed is, and what I take a little bit of pride in as I still continue this coaching or volunteering journey, is the shift that happens when the girls, in this case, step into the box and they have the belief and confidence they can hit. Like, there is a swagger there, or a look. And if you've ever coached youth softball or baseball, and you can see them at the beginning of the year, and it's like, oh my goodness gracious sakes, bad news bears. And I don't mean that for these particular girls, but when you start off and you're pretty new at this game, it's hard, And so to see that swagger where they look like hitters and they are eager to hit, and like, because we played a team and they just walk the whole time. But the thing, like, I'm going to get up there and I'm going to swing. Now our contact is impeccable. Our pitch selection, we had some room to work there. But like, to train somebody that I believe in myself and I'm going to do something, like you said, drive the lane or whatever it is, I'm proud of that. Like, the results or whatever, yes, we scored a whole bunch of runs, we won a lot of games, yes, that's great. But that's something that it can last to me, is like, results will come and go, but the belief in yourself. Speaking of which, let's move to metaphorical thinking. We gotta wrap up. We got about 20 minutes for Jake and I. Is metaphorical thinking. So I got to bring this up. I don't have one handy. I should have just went outside and grabbed one. But in the story, George was given a rock. Joey's like, here's a rock. When you find out the meaning of the rock, you've learned the secret of life. kind of like one of those kung fu movies, like wax on, wax off. Like, you get it. And George can't figure it out. He's got nothing. Okay. And I'm gonna say it's a bigger rock. Maybe, got a little bit of weight to it. And more or less, the metaphor I want everybody to take away is, enthusiasm's the rock, but it's polished. So what George did not know is he was given some sort of towel to wipe off this rock. Oh, what was the rock? It was gold. And they compared that to people. Some people have a lot of things to polish off. It's going to take a bit. And this rock, in essence, was black, and it was covered in dirt and grime and this and that. And it took him a bit. But with enthusiasm, and we're going to get to the strategies. I promise we'll get to them. But with enough time, with enough enthusiasm, with enough vision, with enough encouragement, there's gold underneath. So I agree. Like, I wouldn't want to take, it's our responsibility personally to find our gold. It's our responsibility as a coach to try and find his goals as much as we can, right? I acknowledge that you can't get to all 22, but I still think it's there. And that's the point. So as much as things may look glum or gloomy or whatever, and obviously Jake and I had our own stories where things maybe weren't always enthusiastic, it's there. And I think you have to operate from that. Doesn't mean you spend more time with somebody who's negative than you need to, but know that it is there. And some people like George or Scrooge need a little bit of polish. And that's really the metaphor of the energy bus and rocks. So that was a really cool thing. It was usually books don't give us a metaphorical ball on a tee, but this one it did, like, quite literally. It was like, oh, it's a rock. Cool. So well played, John Bjorgården.
I think it's a key that's kind of helping unlock that thought in my mind that as a coach, our job, when we're talking about positivity, we're talking about enthusiasm, but our job is to find the negatives. Right? As a coach, I am looking, right, to fix the things that are wrong. So I'm looking for all of the wrong things. And I've had a parent kind of confront me like, oh, you seem kind of negative. Like, well, that's my job. My job is to find all of the negatives. How can I not be negative? This was early on in my coaching career. And I've always kind of struggled with that idea. It's like, well, yeah, it's my job to find the negatives. How do I make it a positive? How do I generate enthusiasm? But when you start looking at it from the perspective of, no, it's just my job to find the blemishes so that the gold underneath is revealed, that flips it on its head and really shows that, like, no, I'm just simply I'm drawing the positivity out. I'm not trying to get rid of the negatives. And one could argue it's the same thing, but I think from a mentality, I think it's going to drive a positive environment versus a negative one, if that's how you're looking at it, right? I'm just out here to shine up the gold, right? I'm just trying to get rid of that little speck of dirt there. Is a far different mentality than I'm trying to polish a turd right now.
Yeah. Well, and the other, no kidding, because that gets thrown on quite a bit. But like, even when you first see that there's gold there, that first moment, you're like, oh my God, this is gold. This is literally a nugget of gold. And Joy in the book makes fun of it. Was like, I'm glad you didn't lose it, right? Because who knows how much that costs today. But that's the environment we live in as of this recording. But when you first see it, and then you recognize that and share that with the kid or the team or everybody, did you see that? I can't believe, way to go. Like, I mean, especially something small. That, like you said, it's sincere and it's specific, and you're like, wow, because then it seems to catapult, right? Then as soon as you get through, it's kind of like when you because one of my nemesis in life is peeling eggs. When you do like egg salad or something like that, and like as soon as you get that one off, and then like the whole thing comes off, or unless you go too early like me, and it's tedious and annoying. But I agree with that. So, like, as soon as you get that first glimpse. Okay. We have two more sections. We have the most valuable idea, or what lasts from the energy bus for enthusiasm. And then we have the goosh, which is the extra, like, practical takeaways of, like, what can you do to build more enthusiasm? I did purposely leave it out. So the most valuable idea from this is the secret to life of enthusiasm, no matter your context, is rule number 10. Have fun and enjoy the ride. So on page 142 and 143, there's this old guy. I love elderly people. I'm not going to say old people, but elderly people, because they have wisdom. And I like wisdom because they can look back and be like, here's what matters. So there's a character named Eddie. He's 88. And he gives this rule and he says, that's right, George. Or this is Joy speaking. 88, and he plays the piano daily, writes poetry, travels the country by train visiting relatives, and takes my bus when he's home to meet new people, go to new places and new things. Eddie has taught me the secret of life, and is this: the goal in life is to live young, have fun, and arrive at your final destination as late as possible with a smile on your face. And the thing I want to put here and add to this is kind of like Scrooge. He wakes up again. It's Christmas morning. Same thing with Blanchard in the beginning of this episode is you wake up, you live, you work, you play with nothing to lose, everything to gain. You're a kid on Christmas morning. I love that phrase. It's very cheesy, but it's true. Um, you get to see the best of the world, leave the best legacy. And the best legacy, the book said, is that you can possibly leave is living a life where people are touched by your presence, your joy, and your positive actions. And that is one of the best gifts you can give. And I want to end with this because the most valuable idea, at least, with the quote on your heart. Now, you might know this, so I'm kind of curious if you do. But it was way back in the middle of the book, and they talked about having an emotional overflow and that you act from your heart. Now, the heart can be a little devious sometimes, but what I did not know is that in our heart and our brain are very, very different. Yeah. So they always say, oh, my dad would always say, you got to play with heart. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Like, I got it, but like, and then there's the quote, like, throw your heart over the bar and the rest will follow. But on page 100 of this book, and he quotes heartmath.org. And excuse me, but my note on this was damn. So like, I don't usually write that, but it was impressive. It says the heart acts as the emotional conductor. And I'm just going to tie emotions and enthusiasm at this point. And radiates how you are feeling to every cell in your body via the heart's electromagnetic field. Okay, this is out of my realm of expertise. This energy field can be detected 5 to 10 feet away. Okay, now this would be a good true false game, and I'm not going to do that to you right now because we got to finish. 5 to 10 stinking free. That's why I wrote damn, because like, whoa. Mm-hmm. The true false here, this is another one. Like, it's just back to back. The heart's electromagnetic field is 5,000 times more powerful than the brain. And so it goes into this whole, we are literally broadcasting positive or negative energy every moment of the day via our heart, and people are literally picking up. So like, Mr. You, I can spot it a mile away. It's true. I was dying to tell you that like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes ago. You can pick up on it. So like what you're really feeling is whatever that person's emotional resonance. So I guess you just have to, I'm going to make fun of the last 3 years. You didn't need to be 6 feet away, Jake. You just need to be 11 feet away. That's a joke, people. Don't get us banned on YouTube. We just started. Okay. But that is true. And so this idea of having the joy radiate and whatnot. So any thoughts on that before we get practical?
Oh, dude, we're gonna do a whole episode on this.
I knew it.
Yes, this is gonna sound very 60s, but we have a vibration, man. All right. And it's important that we're giving off good vibrations, to quote a important band. What's she doing back there?
I don't know. She needs a pause.
Flynn is sitting in the closet too. What a bunch of goofs. Yes, we definitely have heart vibrations that are given off. I think to kind of connect it, what we've been talking about though, this day, is a lot of people's brains and hearts aren't connected. So you're talking about conviction, when you're talking about belief, when you're talking about doubt, if your heart and your brain are not on the same page, if they're not giving off the same vibration, so to speak, that's when doubt can creep in. That's when you are not letting that joy out, that exuberance out. And I think that's what ultimately leads to people's frustrations.
Agreed. I'm blown away by this, so I'm going to leave it just because of the awe of that. I'm going to have to think of the ramifications, but let's talk about how you can actually get to that 5 to 10 feet. Okay. So this is your last thing. You waited. We've covered it so far. I have 9 things, Jake. I'm going to preface it. We'll give you like half of them, and you can kind of riff on whichever one you really think would be applicable for our crew. And I'll give you the second half, and you can do the same thing. But the ending thing. So let's get really tactical and practical. How do you have more enthusiasm? Okay. And in the book, they talk about every team, everybody needs a chief energy officer, so CEO. This is very common. It's a little cheesy, but I like that. I like to call it every team needs a Gronk. So Gronk is a big kid, and you can definitely see the difference when Gronk has been on the team with Brady and when he has not, because he keeps things light and it's super fun. And so for candidates for this, I just want coaches to know, like, every team needs this, right? And you kind of need that kind of goofy idiot that probably pushes the boundary more than they want to, but it could be the extrovert of your team, like just who's already naturally good at this. They're high EQ, they're a crowd pleaser, they love group excitement, maybe they're a little bit of a show off. That's okay. They're a joker, they're silly, they just naturally are silly, and so recognizing that and not kicking it in the butt. But what are the concepts? So I'm going to give you the first 5, Jake, and then we'll do the second half, and we'll kick this one off. So number 1 is smile. Gabby Reese talks about this. She's married to Laird Hamilton. It's just smiling. Like, just having that goofy, stinking grin. You think of people of higher energy, enthusiasm, they're smiling all the time, right? And we know that smiling is good for us, and just finding things to smile about. Number 2, no neutral exchanges. Now, this wasn't in the book, but I wrote it down anyways, so it's in the Speak Life realm where, yeah, there are no neutral exchanges. Is it positive or is it negative? Number 3, visualization of goals. So constantly, either people talk about you're more likely to achieve a goal by writing it down. Write down your vision. Get it down. Look at it often. Stare at it. It's like a map. It's telling you where to go. Number 4, we only do winners on the energy bus, not whiners. So one of Wooden's 2 cents of threes was don't complain, which is a whole nother avenue, and I'm probably a book we'll get to at some point. Winners, not whiners. Number 5, I'll give you the 5th one, is E plus P equals O. So it's events plus perception / positive energy equals outcome. So you have an event, you add in your perception of said event or positive energy, and you move that into the outcome. Like that's what you get in the end. So smile, no neutral exchanges, visualization of goals, winners, not whiners, E plus P equals O. Any of those you want to talk about in terms of how to build more energy?
Well, I think there's one P word that we haven't really touched on. That's perspective, right? That greatly impacts your energy, your enthusiasm, positive versus negative. How are you perceiving things around you? There are people that seem to just generally be set on perceiving everything negative, and there are people that just seem generally set on perceiving everything positive. That's definitely an internal thing, right? That I believe is a skill that can be changed. I don't think you're just born with that disposition. You're stuck with it. I think it can be changed. But for me, the one that stuck out was number 2. I learned that from my high school coach. There is no such thing as a neutral interaction. And to take this even to the next level, like you just talked about, our heart giving off this vibration that reaches up to 11 feet, just standing next to a person, okay? Literally, just standing next to a person is either having a positive or negative effect on them, okay? To the point where, right, when we talk about when you talk about electric field and vibration, okay, that's interacting with your molecules. Like it's that level that it's interacting with, right?
Yep.
And there was a study done, and it's a book on it. I probably should know the name of it. I don't, but a scientist went and just took glasses of water. I think you're familiar with this one.
Oh yeah.
And
I could look it up.
Would place sounds, right, from classical music to rap to rock. Would also just take words and tape a word on the glass, and it would be everything from joy, love to hate, or I mean, even just like wrote Hitler on one cup, and then would freeze the water as this was happening, and then take a look at the molecule, the water molecule, under a microscope, and the crystal formations that would happen when a positive thing was played or put on the cup. The water crystal would be beautiful. It'd be geometrical. It'd be gorgeous. Versus if it was the negative one, it was just in shambles. It was all over the place. It was ugly. We're 70% water. That same thing is happening to us. Your presence has that impact on the people around you. Forget the words that you say. Okay, we're not just standing by people is affecting those around us.
That is really good research. And remember, if you go look that up, it literally is just black and white, or this or that, negative, positive. It's binary.
Mhm.
People think like, oh, there's certain special top 10 words. Nah, not really. I mean, you could look at it and use them more. Maybe we need to like go back and look at our transcripts and see how positive we are in this. Maybe we're just working on all the negatives. We got to just be positive, and our views are going to go, like things like that. I agree with that, and I would love to have like a measurement of this. Like this would be a really neat practical thing. Is like go just generally like go through one day or one practice and like write down everybody that's there and like give me a score from like +5 to -5 on that like energy spectrum.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting next to Jake and I get more than like 2 seconds with him, right? If you're picking up on this energy, where does it feel like it's at? And I think we intuitively like, oh, like I'm all bubbly after, Jake and I, play Madden and like whatever. But I mean, like Madden wasn't necessarily the thing. That was a
Mhm.
vehicle, right? To like, we're playing. Okay, that's what we're doing. But Jake was the energy, not Madden. As far as I know, I don't think Madden can give us positive energy in our heart, but maybe it can. That's a good marketing play. But it was Jake that gave me the energy by
Yep.
our banter back and forth. So I'm going to go to the second set because we're going to wrap up. Is all these next ones. These are good too. They're really good stuff. We'll have to post this as a full list too. Is number 6 is the trash can. On page 48, like where do you put negativity? This is an underdeveloped one. Now, Cal State Fullerton a long time ago, with Ken Reviz, I believe was the sports psychologist, so I could be wrong. Went to the College World Series, but they had like a little mini toilet that would flush. And so if they ever struck out, they would go flush it, kind of thing, that concept. But even having a literal trash can where you take some sort of piece of paper, write down whatever the gunk is, you can whine and complain about it, wrapping it up and throwing it away. I think it's a really cool tool. I think it's underrated. It's cheap, probably why nobody uses it because it's not marketable, sellable. Maybe go make a branded trash can and do a thing. But that would be a good one. Number 7 is dual, because it was both in the book, was the thank you walk. So going on a walk and thinking of people and things that you're thankful for, along with the success walk. So the visualization of success. Number 8 is one great thing that happened that day. So George started doing this, like what good happened that day at the end of work and at the end of the day. And he started doing it with his kids. I want to make a very, very strong push for Neil. I believe it's Neil Parisha's 1,000 Awesome Things. One of my favorite websites. It's a book. I'm not going to tell Neil's story, but the reason why the website's awesome is, without being punny, is he comes up with all the most random things that are awesome. And so if you go check that out, it's amazing. And I like the awesomeness of that. And then the number 9 is the love language, which we're going to talk about in the friendship category of Wooden's Pyramid of Success, which is words of affirmation. The ability to affirm somebody builds people up. So some of these are self-facing, some of these are strategies. But in review, Jake, trash can, thank you walk or success walk, so any of the walks, one great thing that happened / 1,000 awesome things, and or words of affirmation, all things that build enthusiasm. What do you got on that?
I know when I was an athlete, I did a lot of pre-game visualization of successes that I've had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that was a big thing that I did that would get me excited for going out. And the key to that, the power to that, is not just visualizing those past successes, but allowing yourself to feel what it felt like to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That feeling, that emotion really is a great driver forward. But for me, the one that stuck out were the walks. I would call it prayer. You could call it meditation. But one thing that I try to do is if I feel like I'm complaining about somebody or something, I really just try to stop and set my mind to the positive things, especially a person. It's a person that I'm struggling with. Just stopping, and I would pray for the person. I know there's a slogan that kind of goes around that says, you don't complain about the people you pray for. I think that is a little bit of a slogan, but there is some truth to it. And if you want to say pray or just say meditate on the positive attributes of that person, like they are another human being, something as simple as that. Like that's a human being that is unique and there is gold in there, right?
Mhm.
Really helps reset your mind into a positive mindset, and then I think allows you to bring enthusiasm when you're around that person, because
Mhm.
that's the memory of that you have of them, that's a thought you have of them, not the whatever is annoying you about them.
Correct. I agree. That's cool. I want to wrap. That was good. Because we're right on time. So thank you everybody for listening along, following along. Be sure to like and subscribe. We are in the enthusiasm month. This is the Energy Bus by John Gordon. You can get those at bookshop.org or even thrift books. We'll include that. Foreshadowing, we're going to be covering The Power of Fun. That's by Catherine Price. And then we have Super Better by Jane McGonigal. That's how we'll wrap that. It's a little bit more sciencey, but equally a lot of takeaways. So these are a little bit lighter, more anecdotal, and that is okay. Other than that, be sure to check out those other episodes. Eat More Corn. That's a fun one. Very, very heavy on the science, or the more lighter, my favorite question for more enthusiasm. That was a good one, but I don't know, Jake. I mean, I think we get a little electromagnetic field even through the headphones, because I got to tell you, it's a lot more energetic. Not doing these solo, I guys gotta say. So it's good to have you back, and always good to have you on these. So, anything else on energy or enthusiasm that we didn't get to that you want to add?
No, I'll leave with this question. You said you didn't believe in manifestation, but then you just told me a stat about how your heart gives off an electromagnetic field 11 feet outside of your body. I mean, I'm just saying those
No,
two
it said
things.
5 to 10. I said like
Oh, 5 to 10. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Sorry. Just saying, I feel like those two things
May,
might be a little at odds.
maybe I'll bring my tinfoil to the next episode. So thank you for learning, everybody. Never stop learning, and we will see you on the next episode. See
See
ya.
you guys.